I'm standing behind the counter at a beachside cafe in Bondi, and this American woman in her 50s is explaining to me how we're making coffee wrong. She's holding up her flat white like it's evidence in a trial. "This is way too strong," she says. "Back home, we know coffee should fill the whole cup. This is basically espresso with a splash of milk." I'm trying to figure out how to explain that she literally ordered a flat white. That's what it is. But she's already asking if we have a manager who understands proper coffee ratios. My coworker Marco just shakes his head and starts making her a mug of hot milk with a shot of coffee floating in it. She takes one sip and goes, "Now that's coffee." She tips us $2 American and leaves it on the counter like she's done us a favor. That same week, I had a guy try to convince me that Australian bacon was uncooked because it wasn't crispy. It was grilled bacon, fully cooked. He wanted me to microwave it until it shattered. Then there was the family, who got genuinely upset that our beach didn't have lifeguard towers every 50 meters like proper beaches in California. We have lifeguards. They're just not in towers straight out of Baywatch. And the woman who insisted our pharmacy was breaking the law because we wouldn't sell her antibiotics without a prescription. "I know my body," she kept saying. "I don't need a doctor to tell me I have a sinus infection." But that was just the beginning. See, Australia gets a lot of American tourists. And look, most of them are fine. They're here to see kangaroos in the opera house and have a good time. But every so often, you get someone who's convinced that the way things work back home is the only logical way things could possibly work anywhere. And when reality doesn't match up, they don't question their assumptions. They question our entire country. Working at that Bondi cafe, I learned that Americans have a very specific relationship with temperature. And by specific, I mean completely different from the rest of the world. It was a warm November day. Australian summer was just starting. I had a couple in their 60s sitting outside, and the guy kept asking me why our thermometer was broken. "It says 32 degrees, but it's clearly hot out here. Your equipment's busted." I thought he was joking at first, but he was serious, dead serious. He'd been walking around Sydney all morning thinking every temperature display in the city was malfunctioning. His wife was nodding along. We thought maybe it was a tech issue, like Y2K or something. I had to explain Celsius to adults. In 2024, they looked at me like I'd just told them Australia uses a different kind of gravity. "But why?" the guy asked. "Fahrenheit is more precise. You've got more degrees to work with." I didn't have the energy to explain that the rest of the world manages just fine. I've got about 50 more of these stories, and I break down a new one every week. The people who subscribe aren't here for random travel fails. They're here because they know there's a pattern worth understanding. If that's you, you know what to do. His wife was already pulling up a conversion app on her phone and gasping. 32 Celsius is 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not right. How do you survive? They ended up leaving because they said the heat was dangerous, and we should have warned them. We did. Every weather report in the country warned them. They just didn't believe the numbers. About a month later, I'm at a hotel in Melbourne for my cousin's wedding. I'm just a guest, but I end up chatting with the receptionist during breakfast. She tells me about this American guy who checked in during winter. July. Proper Melbourne cold. He came down to the desk at midnight, absolutely furious, saying his room's heating was broken. She went up to check. The room was warm, like properly warm, but he was standing there in shorts and a t-shirt, pointing at the thermostat, which read 22 degrees. 22! He kept saying. "That's freezing. That's below freezing." She had to explain that 22 Celsius is 72 Fahrenheit. Room temperature. Comfortable. He didn't believe her. He made her show him the conversion on her phone. Then he got quiet for a second and goes, "Well, you should really change your thermostats to show real degrees. This is confusing for international guests." She told me the hotel has guests from literally everywhere. Japan, Germany, Brazil, South Africa. No one else has ever had this problem. But he genuinely thought the hotel should change its entire system for American tourists. The best one, though? My mate Dave works for the Bureau of Meteorology. He does social media for their Sydney office. He told me they got a complaint email from an American tourist who'd been in Australia for 3 days. The email was long, really long, but the main point was that our weather reports were irresponsible and misleading because they used Celsius instead of the standard temperature scale. Dave sent back a polite response explaining that Celsius is the standard in Australia and, well, most of the world. The guy replied within an hour. "That's exactly the problem," he wrote. "You're isolating yourselves from the global community by refusing to adopt the international standard." Dave said he had to step away from his computer for a bit after that one. Friend Lisa works as a primary school teacher in suburban Brisbane. Nice neighborhood, lots of families. Pretty standard Australian setup. Last year, they had an American family move in. Dad was transferred for work. They had a 7-year-old daughter starting at Lisa's school. First day, the mom comes in for pickup and sees kids running around the playground barefoot. Just normal Australian kids, shoes off, running on the grass during lunch. The mom absolutely loses it. She goes straight to the principal's office and demands to know why the school is neglecting basic child safety. The principal tries to explain that going barefoot is normal here. Kids do it all the time. It's actually good for foot development. The mom is not having it. She starts talking about hookworm and tetanus and broken glass. She wants a policy change. She wants mandatory footwear. Lisa said the meeting went on for 40 minutes. The mom kept saying, "In America, this would be a lawsuit waiting to happen." The principal kept saying, "But we're in Australia." It was like two people speaking completely different languages. The compromise was that her daughter could keep her shoes on. Obviously, no one was forcing the kid to go barefoot. But the mom wasn't satisfied. She started a Facebook group for concerned parents about playground safety standards. It had 3 members, her husband, and one other American expat who joined and then left after realizing what it was about. Meanwhile, my buddy Tom works at a gym in Darwin. Tropical city, hot as hell most of the year. The gym has a policy that you can't wear outdoor shoes inside. You either work out barefoot, in socks, or in clean indoor trainers. Pretty standard for a lot of gyms here. Keeps the floors clean. This American guy, maybe mid-30s, super fit, comes in for his first session. Tom explains the shoe policy at the front desk. The guy just stares at him. "You're telling me I can't wear shoes in a gym," Tom clarifies. "Not outdoor shoes. You can wear—" "That's insane," the guy interrupts. "That's a health code violation. You can drop weights on your feet." Tom points out that plenty of people work out barefoot. Some prefer it for deadlifts and squats. Better ground contact. The guy is shaking his head like Tom just suggested exercising in a clown costume. "I'm going to need to speak to whoever's in charge," he says, "because this is genuinely dangerous. In the States, you'd be shut down for this." Tom's manager comes out. Same conversation, same arguments. The guy refuses to work out under these conditions. He wants his membership fee refunded. They refund it. He leaves a 1-star Google review saying the gym doesn't follow international safety standards. The review's still up. It has 15 replies from Australians trying to explain that barefoot training is normal. He hasn't responded to any of them. Most travel channels show you where to go. I show you what happens when cultural expectations collide with reality, and why it keeps happening. This kind of analysis doesn't show up in your feed by accident. Hit subscribe if you want the deep cut every time, not just the surface reaction. But here's the thing that gets me. I was visiting my sister in Adelaide, and we stopped at this nice cafe for brunch. The place has a sign on the door. "No shoes, no worries." Meaning you can come in barefoot if you want. It's near the beach. People do it all the time. An American couple walks in, both in their 20s. They see the sign and the guy goes, "Oh, cool, so shoes optional?" They take their shoes off. They're trying to blend in. They sit down barefoot and order. They're having a great time. But then the guy leans over to the table next to them, where this older Australian couple is eating, and says, "Is this a regular thing here? The barefoot lifestyle?" The Australian guy just shrugs. Sometimes, if you're at the beach or whatever, the American gets this excited look. See, this is what I love about Australia. You guys just get it. Back home, everyone's so uptight about this stuff. Like, shoes are optional, man. Feet are natural. My sister and I are trying not to laugh, because this guy thinks he's discovered some enlightened Australian philosophy, when really, it's just a beach cafe. No one's making a statement. It's just practical. I used to work at a bookshop in Sydney CBD, right in the tourist area. We'd get people from everywhere, buying maps and guides and Australian fiction, standard stuff. But the payment process broke some people's brains. This American woman, maybe 45, brings up 3 books. I scan them and tell her the total. She hands me her credit card. I tap it on the reader. Transaction complete. Receipt prints. She's standing there, staring at me. "Don't you need my ID?" I tell her no, the payment went through. "But you didn't check my signature." I explain that we don't really do signatures anymore. It's all chip and tap now. She pulls her card back and looks at it like it's betrayed her. This is a security risk. Anyone could steal my card and use it. I mention that most cards have limits on tap payments before you need a PIN. And if it's stolen, you just report it, and the charges get reversed. She's not convinced. In America, she says, and I swear I heard this exact phrase about 40 times a week, they check your ID. Every time. It's safer. I don't point out that card fraud exists in America too. I just smile and give her her receipt. She takes it, but she's clearly bothered. Like we've personally made her less secure by not checking her driver's license. The next week, different situation. American guy in his 30s, buying a gift for someone. Total comes to $47. He hands me a 50. I give him $3 change. He counts it. Looks at me. "Where's the rest?" I'm confused. "That's your change. 50 minus 47. "Yeah, but where are the coins?" I tell him there are no coins. "It's $3 even." He holds up the coins in his hand. "Wait, no." He holds up the $3 coins. Not bills, coins. And that's when I realize what's happening. "These are dollars?" he asks. "Yeah. $1 coins. $2 coins. We don't really use dollar bills here." His face does this thing, like his brain is rebooting. "You use coins for dollars?" I nod. He looks at the coins again. "That's so weird. These feel like quarters." I explain that our smallest note is $5. Anything under that is coins. He's still processing. But coins are for change. Small amounts. It takes him a minute, but he eventually pockets the coins and leaves. I see him later on the street, showing his friend the coins like they're artifacts from ancient Rome. My cousin Rachel works at a currency exchange at the airport. She told me about an American family who came in to exchange their leftover Australian dollars before flying home. They had about $80 in coins. Just coins. The parents were annoyed because they didn't realize they'd collected that much change. Rachel explained that $1 and $2 coins add up fast. The dad was genuinely upset. "You guys should warn tourists about this." I thought I had like $10. This is $80. Rachel pointed out that they had $80, which they could now exchange. He acted like this was beside the point. But I carried all these coins around for a week. My pockets were heavy. She suggested maybe putting them in a wallet next time. He gave her a look like she'd just suggested something completely unreasonable. But the absolute best story came from my mate Jake, who works at a pub in Melbourne. American group comes in, 4 people. They have drinks, they have food. Bill comes to $215. They pay with card, all good. Then one guy in the group asks Jake, "So how much should we tip?" Jake says tipping's not really a thing here. If they want to leave something, that's nice, but it's not expected. Staff get proper wages. The guy's face lights up. Oh man, that's amazing. So we just pay what's on the bill, Jake confirms. Yeah, that's the bill. The guy turns to his friends. See? I told you Australia was better about this stuff. They leave happy. No tip, no guilt, everyone's fine. But 2 hours later, a different American couple comes in. Same situation. Jake mentions that tipping's optional. The guy looks offended. So you're saying you don't want a tip? Jake clarifies. He's not saying that. He's saying it's not required. But if I want to tip, I can? Of course. The guy nods slowly. Right. But you're saying I don't have to. Correct. So which is it? Should I or shouldn't I? Jake's trying to explain that it's genuinely up to them when the guy cuts him off. I'm just going to tip. I don't want you thinking Americans are cheap. He leaves 20%. His girlfriend says, "You know we didn't have to do that." I know, he says. But now they'll remember us. Jake remembered them all right. As the couple who turned optional tipping into an anxiety spiral, but the story that still kills me happened to my friend Sophie. She's a tour guide in Tasmania, does wildlife tours, shows tourists the local animals, explains the ecosystem. Standard stuff. She gets a lot of international visitors and she loves it. But last year, she had a group with this one American guy in his 50s who had opinions about everything. They're out in the bush, and Sophie's showing them a Tasmanian devil. Not up close, obviously. It's a wild animal, but they can see it from a safe distance, doing its thing. Everyone's taking photos, really excited. Except this guy. He raises his hand. Sophie calls on him. Yes? Why isn't it spinning? Sophie's confused. Sorry? The Tasmanian devil? Why isn't it spinning around? Like a tornado? There's this long silence. Sophie realizes what's happening. That's a cartoon, she says gently. Tasmanian devils don't actually spin. The guy looks embarrassed but also defensive. Well, how was I supposed to know that? The cartoon's famous. Sophie explains what Tasmanian devils actually do. They're scavengers. They've got powerful jaws. They're endangered. They're important to the ecosystem. The guy's listening, but you can tell he's disappointed. Like reality didn't live up to Warner Brothers. Later in the tour, they see a kangaroo. It's just chilling in a field, eating grass. The same guy goes, "Can you make it box something?" Sophie's trying to stay professional. They don't really box. That's mostly a defensive behavior, and we don't want to stress the wildlife. But they can box, though, right? Technically, if threatened, they'll use their legs and arms defensively. So yes, he turns to his wife. See? I told you they box. At the end of the tour, he comes up to Sophie and says, "You know, Australia's great and all, but you guys should really play up the fun stuff more. The spinning devils, the boxing kangaroos. That's what people come here for." Sophie told me she just smiled and nodded. What else could she do? She'd spent 3 hours explaining actual Australian wildlife, actual ecosystems, actual conservation efforts. And this guy wanted Looney Tunes. But that's the thing, right? Sometimes people travel thousands of miles to see something real, and then get disappointed that it's not like TV. They want Australia to match their expectations instead of just experiencing Australia as it is. And when it doesn't, they don't think maybe their expectations were off. They think we're doing Australia wrong. Sophie still does tours. She still loves her job. But now when someone asks if the devils spin, she's got her answer ready. Only on Tuesdays, she says with a straight face. Budget cuts. These stories never stop, and I'm not stopping either. I track these cultural collisions full-time, so you can see the patterns everyone else misses. The people who subscribe aren't here for random anecdotes. They're here because they think 3 moves ahead. If you've made it this far, you're already one of them. Make it official. Every week there's a new one. Every month, someone else tries to explain to an Australian how Australia should actually work. We're used to it by now. We just smile, nod, and keep doing things the way we've been doing them. Because at the end of the day, we're not the ones who are confused. We know exactly where we are,